So in this video, we're going to discuss this question. Are young people today worse than ever? Right? So before we answer this question, we're going to break down this topic, right? So people and the media and in society today, most people, adults, the older generation are saying that young people today are worse than ever, right? And they are complaining about you and saying that you no longer respect your elders, you no longer respect your parents, you don't respect authority, you are rude, you are impatient, you lack self-control, you lack self-discipline, you are extremely aggressive, you are angry, you are rowdy, you are reckless, you are arrogant, you are more raunchy, you are more vulgar, you are out of order, you are loud, you talk back, you answer back authority figures, you don't really respect authority figures. They are saying that, you bully a lot online, you bully in person, you're lying more, you cheat a lot, especially in school, you argue a lot with authority and your parents, you abandon your commitments in school and in your personal life, you have a bad attitude, you are impulsive, you curse a lot, you roll your eyes when you're talking, you roll your neck, you insult your parents, you insult teachers, you insult authority figures, you have an entitled attitude, you have an entitled type of behavior. And are we seeing this today in young people? Yes. But we can't say that you're worse than ever, right? So let's break down this topic. Let's dissect this topic. So there are causes of behavioral problems in teens and young adults, right? So behavioral problems in teens is normal. And some reasons why you might have behavioral problems is because, like, especially when it's out of hand and it goes on for a long time, it gets out of control, is because you have been neglected, you have been physically abused, you have been emotionally abused, you have been sexually abused, your parents yell at you every day, your parents fighting in front of you, your parents use obscene language on you, and you copy their behavior. You copy what you see, right? You have been raised in stressful environments, like a chaotic environment. Your environment is not safe where you're growing up. Your parents abuse drugs and then you abuse drugs. Your parents might have mental health problems. You might be feeling unloved. Your parents don't give you attention. You experience poverty, or your parents abusing drugs, as I mentioned before, and then you start using drugs. You grow up, you lack supervision, you're being left alone at a young age, you lack guidance and support growing up, you have bad role models around you, you have been misguided by the wrong people. All of these causes behavioral problems, right? And most parents and the older generation, adults, are complaining about you, and these reasons that I just mentioned, some of them are their problem. Parents have parenting problem, adults act like you copy them. So are you the worst? We cannot say that, because some of these behavioral problems are coming from your parents, the older generation, and people in authority. So that's some causes of the behavioral problems, right? And adults, people in authority, the older generation, they seem to forget that it's normal for teens and young adults to have behavioral problems, right? It's normal for teens and young adults to explore sex, to use drugs, to drink alcohol, because they are curious and they have peer pressure. They increase their time with social media, they play more video games, they watch more movies, they have mood swings. It's normal as a teen, as a young adult, to have mood swings. Sometimes you're rebellious, sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're happy and then you're angry, right? It's normal to be aggressive at some point growing up as a young adult. And I'm not saying it's okay to use drugs, it's okay to go and have sex, it's okay to take alcohol. I'm not saying it's okay, I'm not giving you a pass to go have sex and use alcohol and drugs, right? Your parents should have already talked about these topics with you. Because obviously you will be experiencing peer pressure, you might be influenced in some way to use drugs or alcohol, and your parents should have already explained to you the effects of drugs, alcohol, and having sex at a young age, right? So this is not a pass to say it's okay, it's just normal to be curious and to maybe explore these things as a young adult. Lying is normal for young people. Hiding the truth, you do not want to get in trouble. Breaking the rules as a teen is normal. Arguing with authority is normal as a young adult. You might change your appearance. You're getting in touch with your sexuality. You're experimenting. You're creating your identity. So you might change your hair. You might wear different clothes. It's normal. You might not talk to your parents as much because your parents are more significant at that time. You spend more time with your friends. That is normal. All of these things that I mentioned is normal to do this as a teen growing up, as a young adult, adolescent, right? So, but there's like a barrier. There's a huge barrier. There's a huge gap between teens and adults, between teens and the older generation, and I believe this is one of the reasons why all of these normal behaviors have gotten out of hand, right? So yes, it's a big problem today with teens, and these behavioral problems are these common things that you would do or you would explore. It's getting out of hand. It's increasing, right? So but I'm saying because of this barrier and because of this huge gap between teens and the older generation, I believe that is why it's getting out of hand. So where is this, how did this barrier come about, right? Why are young people today seem worse than ever? How did this big gap between teens and the older generation come about? Well, one of the first reasons is that you don't have a trusting relationship with your parents, right? You don't share important things with each other. You don't talk about hard topics. You, as a young teen, as a young adult, and your parents, you're not talking about sex, you're not talking about drugs, you're not talking about alcohol, you're not talking about lust, you're not talking about relationships, you're not talking about dating and being promiscuous and having a whole phase. You're not communicating on a regular basis about meaningful things in life, right? Topics about like contraceptives, the effects of using alcohol and drugs, peer pressure, talking about money, talking about relationship, all of the challenges you have in school, challenges you would have at home. These are important topics. These are meaningful things you should be talking to your parents about, and neither you or your parents are talking about these important topics, and that would create a big gap, a big barrier between you and your parents, right? So the second reason why we have this big barrier between young adults and the older generation is that your parents do not empathize with your experience. They are not willing, or they're not willing to put themselves in your shoes. They cannot put themselves in your shoes or imagine how it feels to be a teenager or to understand from your perspectives, right? You as a young person, you don't feel acknowledged, and you are like unwilling to share your feelings, your ideas and your opinions freely because You feel like they don't understand you, they don't acknowledge you, they don't see you, and they don't validate you, right? And they may not sympathize with you, with your experience. They seem like they forgot what it's like to be a teenager or a young adult. And growing up could be very stressful and confusing, especially without support like from your parents, right? So the third reason why there's this barrier and there's this gap between young adults and the older generation, because your parents don't respect you. Your parents disregard your ideas. They dismiss your opinions. They dismiss and disregard your personality, your emotions, your experience. They belittle you. They make you feel inferior. They trivialize your experiences. They criticize the way that you do things and the way that you think, or the way that you might understand something, or they just belittle you and make you feel inferior and like not important because you are young. That obviously will create a barrier in communication. They see you as inferior, less important because you are young, right? And they talk to you in a disrespectful way, in a downgrading way, and then obviously you might just not respect them back, right? And you distance yourself and you might just act like them also, and both of you disrespect each other, right? So second reason why we have this barrier between young people and the older generation and their parents is because your parents don't show you or tell you that they're going to be there for you no matter what. Your parents don't really show you that they care about you. They don't tell you how much they love you. They don't tell you they don't do small things to make you feel happier or do small things to make your life easier. They don't tell you that they're going to be there for you no matter what, because you could experience pregnancy, you could maybe use drugs, and you get health problems, you use alcohol, you lust, you be promiscuous, you're going through whole phase and you do many wrong things, and maybe you get your heart broken, and all of these things that you face growing up as a teen and a young adult. You definitely would need support and to know that your parent is going to be there for you no matter what, and you don't feel like that because they don't show interest in you, they don't ask you meaningful questions about your life. And obviously this will keep the channel of communication closed and blocked, right? You feel disconnected from your parents, from the older generation. You don't feel free to like go to them. They might not seem approachable. They look unapproachable. Maybe you went to them with a topic maybe about sex or drugs or something, and they were aggressive with you, they were rough with you, or maybe they're too strict with you, and you avoid them and you withdraw, and then you might seek advice from your peers, and then your peers and you, maybe you all don't know exactly the truth about many topics like sex and drugs and alcohol, right? That's for example. So those are 4 reasons why there's a big barrier. There's a huge gap between teens, there's a huge gap between young adults and the older generation and their parents, right? So we're still breaking down this topic. If you are worse than ever, I would say we cannot say that young people today are worse than ever, or that you are worse than ever today, because we need to remember that and acknowledge that you are facing more challenges than your parents. You are facing more challenges and problems than the older generation, right? For example, it's just harder to save for the future. College and university is more expensive. Some of you might not even think about buying your own home. You have student loan to pay back. In tuition, the cost of college and university is rising, right? So many things are rising. House prices are rising. Rent have increased. Your income is the same, remain the same. Cost of living higher. You know, maybe your income drop, we don't know. Basically, incomes are not the best right now, right? Finding a job is harder. You know, you have to have this experience. You have to have all these extracurricular activities to get a job. Healthcare increase. I mean, if something happens to you, some unexpected emergency arise, you might not be able to take care of yourself. Finding a partner is harder. It's just dating today is very difficult and really frustrating, especially with social media. And your parents didn't have social media back then, so today is very different. Many things have changed. They might not be able to advise you. It's very difficult today with social media. Your parents have not experienced this, right? So, and eventually with all of these problems, you remain at home after college, you remain at home after university, and there are many disadvantages with living with your parents after 25. It would be a lot of stress for you, and you could look at I have a video on that, why you should not live with your parents after 25. You have more challenges than your parents. You have more challenges and problems than the older generation, right? So we cannot say that you're the worst than ever today. Academic standards are higher than ever. There's so much pressure, there's so much competition to be the best, right? Which would obviously create less opportunities, right? You experience a pandemic. You were online for like almost a year, right? So your interpersonal skills and your communication skills, they are low. You are behind on social skills, right? Yes, you are gaining higher level of academics and qualifications, which is great, but you are still unprepared for like work in terms of social skills because of being online for so long, away from your classmates, away from your teachers, just being at home, left with the internet only, right? So you are behind with communication skills, with social skills, and that is not your fault. You've been online for years, so you might not be able to communicate effectively. You don't know how to resolve conflict, might not know how to listen actively. You need to work on, or you're behind on empathy, you're behind on having respect and managing relationships, you're behind on collaborating and following instructions and having patience and being positive and using manners and having eye contact. All of these things you are behind in because of the pandemic, and also school would not directly teach you these skills, right? So you are way behind with social skills, and that is not your fault, right? So we have to acknowledge all of these challenges, and that is why we cannot say that you are the worst than ever, right? Most of you're not better off than your parents. You're experiencing poverty, and that could make you unsuccessful. You might be facing depression due to social media. It's a really big problem today for young people. You're not involved in sports, you're not doing extracurricular activities. You have FOMO, fear of missing out, which leads to loneliness, isolation, being online for so long. And your parents might not know about mental health. They might not know about depression, anxiety, substance abuse. Your parents more than likely do not lack knowledge about mental health, and obviously they don't teach mental health in school also, right? Social media, your parents didn't have phones and all these apps, and social media could have a really negative impact on you, right? Your parents lack knowledge about mental health, especially signs of depression in teens. They might think that you're lazy and you're good for nothing, and they might comment many things, and you probably might be getting depressed because you get frustrated easily. And these are some signs of depression in teens. You're frustrated easily, you get annoyed really easily, you're moody, irritable, you lack interest in in your activities that you used to do before. You might sleep too much, you might not sleep at all, insomnia, you might lose weight, you might increase weight, you start using alcohol, you're rebellious, you might be apathetic. These are just some signs, right? And I'm just mentioning some signs here. Maybe you are a young person watching this, or maybe you are a parent watching this. I'm just talking about some signs of depression, right? Just to educate you a little bit about mental health. Maybe you complain a lot about pain. Pain that is unexplained. Body aches and headaches. You isolate yourself. You drop back in school. You have poor performance. You be absent in school. You forget your obligations. You pay less attention to personal hygiene. You have angry outbursts. You're cutting yourself. You're burning yourself. You are promiscuous. Maybe you have extreme sadness, anxiety, maybe you attempt suicide, you're planning your suicide. All of these are signs of depression, right? And I am not a clinical psychologist, I'm not a family therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist or like any mental health counselor or anything like that. And yes, obviously depression needs to be diagnosed and so on. I'm just mentioning some signs, right? And yes, there are ups and downs of teenagers. There's normal to have ups and downs as a teenager. It's normal to get angry. It's normal to withdraw at some point. It's normal to drop back in school here and there. It's normal to argue sometimes. But when it goes on for a long period of time, obviously, there's a problem, right? Young people argue the worst than ever today. I will say, no, you are not. You just have more challenges and more problems than the older generation, and the older generation and your parents might not know how to help you because some of these problems are new and they never experienced it before, right? Social media is a big problem, right? There's lots of cyberbullying happening on social media where people harass you, they threaten you, they humiliate you on social media, they send mean texts, they send mean emails, they post hurtful messages, they spread rumors about you, they spread lies, and it leads to sadness. You get angry, you're frustrated, you don't want to go to school, you could get depressed, you could get anxiety, you feel lonely. This could lead to delinquency, you could be aggressive, you start using drugs, you feel embarrassed, right? And your parents and the older generation, they did not experience cyberbullying, right? But it's really common today with social media. Your grades you might start to fall back in school. You don't want to go to school. You have headache. You have stomach ache. You have sleeping problems. You're embarrassed to participate in class because they post something embarrassing about you. They left some comment, some nasty comment about you, right? And yes, it's common. Social media allow people to share their thoughts and their feelings openly and anonymously, which make it very easier for people to be mean and hurtful. So these apps allow you to send direct messages privately. Somebody could be harassing you privately, sending you direct messages. And we have to remember that you were cut off from your friends, your classmates for almost a year. You left with the internet. God knows what you have seen online. You might be at home online, alone. You probably saw something violent. You probably saw porn online. You don't fully understand that what you see online sometimes is not reality. It's just the highlights of people's life. It's just photos. It's Photoshop. They edit their photos to look different, and you could feel depressed and like you're missing out on things. And there's not really anybody to explain to you that social media is not real life, right? You could get pressure to use drugs, to use alcohol, just being on social media, to take drugs. You're being exposed to gang crimes on social media. Sites like TikTok. TikTok is very popular. TikTok is going to get bigger. Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter. All of these could have links to violent activities, right? You have pressure to post online. You might think that you're boring because you're not posting online. You want to show that you look interesting, so you post like maybe private stuff online to get attention, to look interesting. You're posting online to get likes, to get comments, to get views, to get clicks, to get followers, to get subscribers, to feel good about yourself, and because you're seeing your friends doing it, so you're doing it too, and you're finding many things to post online to get likes, to get followers, to be popular. Social media could cause you to have body image anxiety. Instagram, and you see many images on Facebook and Snapchat, and people are sharing their bodies constantly, especially for women. You forget that these pictures are filtered and they are edited. You get misguided and you get confused about how you should look. You might start to not like yourself because you don't look like the people on Instagram, on like models. You start to hate yourself. You're trying to look like them. You're trying to behave like them. You're following many trends without thinking. There are many trends going on social media. Like there's challenges that comes up. I saw, especially in 2019, the pandemic. There's this milk crate challenge where you pack up all the crates and then you step on it. People fall, people are getting hurt. You might think it's fun and you want to try to do it. There's salt and ice challenge. There's ice bucket challenge, boiling hot water. All of these challenges that you might think is fun and you want to post so you could get likes and you could be popular and people could say, wow, you did this challenge. It's actually could be really dangerous, right? As a teen, your brain is not fully developed. It's not finished developing. It's still maturing. And it would not be really matured until maybe by like your late 20s, right? So the part of your brain that is responsible for planning and for planning and like controlling your impulses have not been developed as yet. So you might get involved in risky behaviors because you're not thinking clearly and that part of your brain has not been developed yet. So you need guidance, right? You need guidance from your parents, from older adults. But sometimes the older generation, your parents and people in authority, they could be really downgrading, they could be really condescending, disdainful, they are aggressive with you, they are abrasive, they have abrasive manner, which makes you feel inferior and unworthy and you don't want to interact with them. Right? So you actually need somebody to explain to you that getting likes and views and being popular and getting followers could never be more important than your health. And some adults are so rowdy and coarse. They coarse you up. They are just crude and just unrefined in the way that they talk to you and they approach you, and that is why you have this barrier and you don't have guidance. They use obscene language on you to correct you, which is weird. When you start to use obscene language on them, you're mirroring their behavior. And when they are like this, it makes you feel like you're disrespected, and then you get rebellious, and in turn nobody respect each other, and it's just terrible, and you just be rebellious for spite. So that's a problem, and it's not your problem, and it's not to say you are getting worse than ever, right? You have many challenges, especially mental health challenges is increasing in adolescence, right? Your brain is still developing, your brain is still changing. You have physical changes, you have emotional changes, you're going through social changes, which can make you very vulnerable to mental health problems, right? All these big changes like in your brain and all your experiences that you're having in adolescence can cause schizophrenia, anxiety, depression, bipolar, eating disorders, eating too much to feel good. Your brain is really vulnerable to stress as a teen, as a young adult, right? Are you divorced? Are young people divorced worse ever today? No. You have more challenges than your older generation. You have more issues, you have more problems, right? For example, you are just some of us, some of you, we are uncertain about our future. COVID-19 impacted our life, it impacted everybody's life, and it just have made many young people just uncertain about their future. As I mentioned before, college, university is more expensive. You might not have the opportunity to go to college or university. Then you might end up with a low paying job, right? You have to start working right away. You might be living paycheck to paycheck. You have less working experience. Your income low, cost of living high. You have no support. You have no help. There are many challenges that you are facing, right? And we have to acknowledge that. Adults have to acknowledge that. The older generation have to acknowledge that. Your parents have to acknowledge that you have more challenges than they had before, right? For example, you are suffering from obesity that is rising. You have eating problems, especially overeating. You lack exercise, especially from the pandemic, being at home, not being able to play sports and be active. You lack exercise because you have had so much time to be on your Nintendo, on your PlayStation, your Xbox, and be on social media apps all day. You might have experienced some stressful event that will contribute to your obesity because you want to eat to feel good. Maybe someone died, maybe your parents got divorced, maybe you moved, maybe you got abused, we don't know, and you have low self-esteem because of your body image. You are overweight, you are ashamed of how you look. You are so ashamed that you hide at home and that you don't go and exercise. And this would create more problems for you, or it created more problems for you. Now you have joint pain, you can't breathe properly, you might be getting heart disease, or you have high blood pressure. It's getting worse, and your parents might not encourage you to be healthier. To be healthy, they might look just like you, they might be obese, and they had you, and you have the same eating problems, and both of you are obese, right? And what to do? Well, you need to change your eating habits. If you are a teen and you are obese, you need to change it now. If your parents are not, or parents or other relatives or different adults, people who care about you are not encouraging you to lose weight now, you need to lose weight. You need to take it up on yourself. Change your eating habits, plan your meals, select better foods, eat less. Limit snacking. Don't use food as a reward to feel good, to feel better. I think that is the main problem. Using food to feel better. You need to increase your physical activity. You need to do walking. You need to do cardio for at least 30 minutes until you could do cardio for 1 hour. If you are obese, avoid fast food. You are playing too many video games, you are watching too many series, you are watching too many movies, you are watching porn, you are watching crime, you are watching violence, you are just being on social media for too long, you're on TikTok for too long, you're on social media posting to get likes, to get comments, to get followers, wasting time on social media and becoming obese, right? So, are you the worst? Are young people the worst ever? No. You have more challenges, you have more problems than the older generation. And these problems are new, especially social media, right? Understand? And most of my videos I'm talking to you like I'm talking to a young person, right? So you need to understand that your parents and your elders and the older generation before you, they might not know how you really feel and what you're going through, or sometimes they forget that they were young and they do not want to empathize with you or sympathize with you, and they be harsh with you, right? So they might not know exactly what you're going through, especially like with cyberbullying and receiving nasty messages and comments online. They might not have an idea of, why of these apps that are increasing. They might not fully understand what your reality is like, right? You need to understand they might not see or know that you're depressed, that you're frustrated, that you're fearful of your future, that you're worried about your future, you're worried about your reputation online, you're worried about your body image, you're seeing all these edited and filtered photos. You start worrying about how you look, you start hating how you look, you're misguided about how you should look, right? They might not understand these problems that you are going through, especially being bullied online, bullied in school. And they might just not know when you are having a hard time, when you are breaking down. They might not know the signs of depression. Your parents, they might not know you have anxiety. They just might not know that you have eating disorders. They might think that you are lazy, you lack drive, you're irresponsible, you lack respect, and you might just have some like mental illness, or you're in a really low mood, or obviously both of you are not communicating, so they might just think you're lazy, you lack drive, and they might say hurtful words to you, right? You're probably just going through a difficult situation in your life and you have no support and you are reacting like that. You are facing issues that no other generation have ever seen before, especially with the advances of technology, right? Not all parents are blind, not all parents are ignorant or lack information or lack understanding about the reality of life for young people today. Some understand that it is harder. Some understand that these are new problems and that is harder. Some of them, they lack knowledge and they are just maybe impatient with you. So are young people divorced ever today? No, you just have more challenges, you have more problems. One question we could ask is about, are parents today divorced ever? That's where we could start, because you came from your parents, right? So obviously it can't be just, are you divorced today? You are marrying your parents, you are marrying the older generation, you are marrying what you see. You have maybe been abused emotionally, sexually. Many things could have happened to you while you are like this, and it's not your fault. But as a young person and as a young adult, as a teen, you would have to start to take responsibility for yourself, because your parents and the older generation might not really know what you're going through, or they pretend they don't know, or they just lack empathy, or they just rowdy and aggressive with you, and there's a barrier in the communication. Communication is closed. So you are not divorced ever. What we could explore, are parents divorced ever today? We could think about parents. They should have some responsibility about why you are like this today and how it have escalated today. So that's all I have for this video, and I hope this helps. If you're a young person, maybe you're a parent watching this, I hope you get better. And thanks for watching. If you like this content, you could subscribe, you could hit the like button, and see you in the next video.